and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor at Worn and Wound. We have a fun show for you today. It's our Geneva Watch Days wrap-up episode. Really happy to be joined by two guests, one of whom was at Geneva Watch Days and one of whom was not. So we're going to get differing perspectives on Geneva Watch Days from home and abroad today as we wrap up the big end of summer show. Zach Weiss, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Welcome back.
Having me.
Of course.
Yeah. Welcome back as well.
Yeah. It's
about the same amount of jet lag at this point, probably.
It's you know what? Knock on wood, but I feel like I'm doing okay. Yesterday was a little bit of a struggle, but I think I'm back fully on East Coast time, and I'm doing okay for now. But jet lag's funny; it can sometimes creep back in unexpectedly. So we'll see. Also joined by Devin Pennypacker, who I don't think is currently suffering from any jet lag.
You'd be surprised.
I would be surprised.
Yeah, I get jet lag just from the commute to the office here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's rough. You should, consider, I don't know how to resolve that. I think you might be on your own.
Just more caffeine. Yeah, it's still early today.
Yeah, no, it is early. This is a rare AM recording of the Worn and Wound podcast. So yeah, maybe a slightly different energy, but my body still thinks it's 5 p.m. So we'll see how this goes. Let's do a quick wrist check before we get into Geneva Watch Day stuff. Devin, what are you wearing today?
Oh, I get to go first. All right. I an oldie but a goodie here. The Certina DS Super PH 1000M, my beefy, chunky, big boy shock resistant diver. Mostly because we are actually adding some Certina to the wind-up watch shop. But Also because the streets here are getting repaved by where I live, and the roads are very bumpy. And so I needed something that could take a beating while I ride my bike to work, and this has a lot of anti-shock to it. So hopefully the movement doesn't get ruined while I ride my bike to work.
I hope that's true. I hope that
we'll find out.
Yeah, I guess we will. It could be a fun editorial idea. How my watch was destroyed by road work in Brooklyn. I think
I broke a Seiko Turtle riding my bike back in Cleveland. So I actually shook the rotor off of it. Fun story for you there.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of vibrations.
Some aggro bike in there.
Man. Oh yeah. Well, it was a fixed tail for those of you who know, and the roads were very rough. So, and for the two people looking at me right now, very confused, we can just move on to Zach Weiss's wrist check.
Zach, what are you wearing today?
I have on my Garrick regulator today.
Oh, very nice. So that's that recently returned from a brief trip overseas to get a little. Yeah, must be nice to have.
Yeah, it did have a small issue that was very quickly fixed and corrected by the awesome team over at Garrick. You get a handmade watch, I think you can have some expectation that these things might run into a little issue. They were shocked, to be honest, because they've never seen this specific issue, but it was a little thing. It took them more time just to re-regulate it because they're very diligent about that. So they take a 2-week re-regulation time. But yeah, fit and as a whistle, is that an expression?
Fiddle. I think fiddle is the word.
Fiddle.
Yeah, fit is a fiddle. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
That's good. I'm glad to see that made it back. It's a beautiful watch. And also glad to hear that Garrick was able to make that resolve that issue quickly. Not surprising at all, considering the great team they have there. But that's always good to hear. I'm wearing a new watch. I came back from Geneva to a new watch alert, as they say. I picked up the Celton X Watch Ho and Co collaboration that sort of went mini viral on Watch Media and Watch Instagram maybe a month or so ago. It has a CNC engraved mother of pearl dial. I love mother of pearl. I couldn't resist. This watch was a little over $1,000. A lot of fun for that price. It looks really nice. Very pleased with it. They did a very nice job with this watch. So yeah, that's my wrist check. All right, Geneva Watch Days 2025. This is the second big Swiss trade show of the year. I think this is the 4th or 5th year they've done Geneva Watch Days. It's kind of time to be sort of a bookend, I think, to the spring release cycle at Watches and Wonders, which of course we attended earlier this year. not as big as Watches and Wonders. It's a very different kind of, scale than Watches and Wonders. Zach, I wanted to start the conversation by asking you, since this is your first experience at Geneva Watch Days, just if you could kind of give us some of your sort of like impressions as a, first time visitor to the event. Did it meet your expectations? How did it compare to your Watches and Wonders experiences in the past?
Yeah. I mean, and compared to Watches and Wonders, like obviously you don't have the Pull Expo side of things, which is sort of the stuffier side of the show. And I think generally speaking, we all enjoy the kind of stuff that happens outside of Pull Expo, maybe a little bit more, watches aside, like just the nature of the sort of meetings and vibe that you get from the meetings in hotels or at the couple of brand boutiques that are around, that kind of thing. It's just, much more, personal and casual, if you will. So this show being just that, I was looking forward certainly to just that feel for it. And, geographically and everything was really nice. Our hotel was like 2 blocks from the main event, which everything was basically within a couple blocks of each other, save like 2, I think, or 3. You went to one as well, boutiques that were like, out in the city. So from that perspective, it was nice. The flip side is that there was nowhere to sit ever. There was like one place to get coffee, and it was fine, but I wouldn't call it great. And it was a little like that part of the city is oddly sort of isolated in a weird way. Like you realize like you kind of have to get several blocks away until you get to more things, and then you also have a lot of like fast food. It's like not like, I don't know. It's a little funny to kind of be like stuck in that little area quite as much because you're running between meetings. I mean, we had like minutes to get between meetings most times for the whole day. We regularly didn't eat, which was annoying at times as well. Especially the first date poured also, which didn't make things any easier. So that aside, though, I mean, I think it was definitely interesting and fun. I don't know quite like. I haven't really like fully come up with a conclusion based on my experience if like I would say this was like this amazing event or not for me. You know what I mean? I love seeing watches. I like meeting with a lot of the brands, always do. It's great to see some people we haven't seen in a long time, like Ming, who doesn't always make it out to these things, and always great to see like Nicholas and just like there were a lot of people that were great to see that are Europe based or Asia based. But like it's not at the grand scale of Watches and Wonders. This isn't the main release moment for most brands. So you're not really getting like the big impact launches. You know what I mean? So it feels like a lot to do to go all the way over to Europe, obviously, to Geneva, to go see watches that are at times sort of iterative or, more press release focused. And you try to get as much interpersonal sort of action as you can in these short meetings, but there's only so much you can talk about and do, especially when you're in a room with 20 other people, kind of a thing. So, I mean, it's something we always, I think as long as it happens, we'll be there. It will continue to happen. But I just, I don't know. I kind of wonder if it was 100% worth it. I don't know. It was worth it, but was it worth it?
I think I think your point is well taken about the difference in like the magnitude of the releases compared to Watches and Wonders. Like Watches and Wonders is still like the key watch event where brands are very deliberate about putting out like the big like splashy release, whatever they want that to be, and it kind of like they structure their year around Watches and Wonders, and that's not what Geneva Watch Days is. It's like you said, it's most brands do show you new releases, but they're I think iterative is the right word. At least this year, there were just a lot of like kind of like maybe more predictable, slightly less exciting releases, and it's much more about, I think, the experience of kind of like networking with the brands and having the meetings still feel like pretty important, and having like FaceTime with folks at the brands is maybe more important at the show than at Watches and Wonders in some ways, even if like the new watches themselves aren't as like important in like the release cycle for these brands that they show at this show. That said, I think that there were a handful of like very notable, like pretty exciting watches that you can kind of like pick out from the there's like 60 something brands that officially exhibit at Geneva Watch Days. And then there are, many, many more that, just kind of like, have rooms at, various hotels and apartments and things that show watches. Devin, I'm wondering what you kind of felt about the show from your perspective back here, watching our coverage and also coverage from other websites and on social media. How do you think that this show kind of like registers in the mind of the watch enthusiasts compared to Watches and Wonders? I mean, well, frame it like this way: like Watches and Wonders, people like stay up all night and like wait for the new like Tudor drop or whatever. I sense that that's not really happening.
No. Well, you say, how does it register in the mind of the watch enthusiast? I think largely it probably doesn't until it happens. Whereas like Watches and Wonders, there's the hype kind of building up to it and people are thinking about it until the event happens. Geneva Watch Days probably is a thing that people don't think about until the day is here, and then they see the coverage happening and they're like, oh, cool, new watches are coming out. I assume. I could be wrong. Maybe people are thinking about it leading up to it. But there's a lack of commercialism around this show compared to Watches and Wonders, I think, where you see more of an emphasis on smaller brands, individual makers, more independence than you see at Watches and Wonders. Whereas, I mean, we all say it all the time, Watches and Wonders is kind of the big brand show. It goes as Rolex goes. It kind of sets the tone. People are looking to see what Rolex is going to do and what, JLC and, the bigger brands are really going to put out for the entire year. Whereas with Geneva Watch Days, for me, it's a little bit more interesting because you don't have that one brand that everyone is staring at. And so all of the different news platforms are all focused on different things. So instead of looking at, your Hodinkee, your Worn and Wound, your Monochrome, your Fratello, and seeing who can get the Rolex article up first, you're genuinely seeing what each website is going to focus on at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. They're all looking at different brands. They're all looking at different watches. So you can follow all of the coverage at the same time and be getting different news the entire day. And that's pretty cool for the average watch enthusiast. You don't get that at your bigger Watches and Wonders show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the coverage we put up on the website and on social media certainly is, I think, like reflective of what we were interested in at the show. Because you're right, like there isn't really, like obviously Tudor doesn't participate in this event, Rolex doesn't participate in this event. It is kind of like geared more towards, like independent brands and smaller brands. There's just more of those brands to see. Although this year, one of the changes I noticed just from, a year ago, and folks who've been attending for longer than that have pointed it out as well, is that there are more, like those big brands are coming, like they're there, the LVMH brands were, we're exhibiting, at a hotel right down the street from the Beau Rivage. And it does feel like there's a, like the corporate brands are coming for, to Geneva Watch Days. And that's a little bit of a change from how the show started. I think it's important to point out that, this event was kind of rose out of the pandemic era and a desire for, like a community event in Geneva around watches and sort of like a more casual sort of setting. And there were big brands behind that movement when it started. I believe Zenith and Bulgari, Moser, and a few other brands, and Breitling too, were among the first brands to kind of organize Geneva Watch Days, and it just quickly grew into like more independent focus. But now the you can really sense that the larger brands are there like in force, in a major way, I think.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen some of the brands that skip Watches and Wonders. I'm surprised we haven't seen them really jump into Geneva Watch Days. I kind of assumed that we would see that happen because they're able to shy away from Rolex stealing all the headlines and Tudor stealing all the headlines, but they still haven't to this point. I'm looking largely at Swatch Group. Maybe they're going to have their own show down the road. We all speculate that at some point they're probably going to do their own debut show, because why not? If they can steal all the eyeballs for one giant moment, they're going to want to do that. But it's good to see that at the moment, at the very least, a lot of the other brands are still getting their due justice. They're still getting the eyeballs. They're still getting their attention. The articles are still focusing on smaller names, smaller makers, independent brands. They're still getting the coverage, and they're not getting buried by all of the other bigger brands out there.
Yeah.
It's actually a good point. I'm like thinking in like retrospect, I'm a little surprised like Breguet at least didn't have something going on with the 250th anniversary, and like, you know, though a Swatch Group brand, there's still, it's Breguet, so it like, you know, it sort of has a independent feel to it just based on its like long history. And yeah, could have fit in here. I don't think people would have been like upset to have had a Breguet launch alongside of the, you know, LVMH and whatever launches that are also happening. But
if Tag Heuer can be there,
they didn't participate. yeah, no, I mean, for sure.
There was a big Swatch Group launch over the course of the weekend. Of course, it was the new Moon Swatch.
Don't.
I just so this Moon Swatch has it's the Harvest Moon Moon Swatch. I just have to mention this. It has popcorn on the dial.
Yeah.
Because of the Harvest Moon is the corn moon. So there's a movie theater style kind of like bucket of popcorn image on the moon. I gotta say, like, I kind of like this one more than I expected. I'm a fan of popcorn. Been a harsh critic of the Moon Swatch, but I found something.
You were a harsh critic of this one until you saw that it was popcorn.
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting that.
180 on this.
Yeah, so. No, listen, when I can admit when I've made a mistake, when I'm wrong. So I didn't buy one. You know, like I'm not angling for a Harvest Moon Swatch, but hey, you know, credit where credit's due. Congratulations to anyone who picked one up on the Harvest Moon day. Not a fan, Devin? Not a fan of the popcorn Moon Swatch?
Because you know we're going to get 15 more of these now. We're going to get 15 more single day release Moon Swatch, whatever. No, we can move on from the Moon Swatch.
Now you sound like me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm now the curmudgeon of the Worn and Wound podcast in regards to the Moon Swatch.
Someone's got to do it. Got to do it.
I'll carry the torch.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to some of the like notable watches from Geneva Watch Days 2025. You know, with like I said, I think that you know, it was, you know, there were like really excellent watches to kind of like pick out from like a kind of like a selection of mostly iterative new releases and novelties. I've got a handful of favorites that I've kind of like made a note of here. But Zach, let's start with you. Was there one watch that like kind of like stood out to you as a kind of like a best in show for this Geneva Watch Days?
I mean, I think we and I would probably agree on this one. But the Vianney Halter Behrens, I mispronounced his name immediately. Good job, me. Vianney Halter Behrens. Because it was the most sort of big feeling launch. Like it felt at a scale that other brands weren't quite doing. And which was cool because Behrens, I think, is the type of brand that could really utilize Geneva Watch Days to their benefit, and they did. And yeah, I mean, that watch was just, we were both really quite surprised by it. They had a press conference for it the day before the show really kicked off. So
literally the first watch that we kind of like were exposed to like at the show. So
which was very cool. And then we got to sit with Vianney Halter himself for half an hour, and he told us about the project, and you know, which just made it that much more exciting to hear from him directly about it. And yeah, I mean, it's super cool. You know, I read the article. It's hard to kind of describe it all, but it's a, you know, I don't even know if aesthetically it's something I love. Like, it's not a watch I could really see on my wrist, but I feel like it was just an interesting project. These two companies coming together, or an independent and like this independent company in China coming together, doing really high level work. And the watch itself is it's a fascinating, like, complex little rectangle of machinery, you know what I mean? Like, it's all movement edge to edge, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, coming away from the show, like, if it being asked, that's probably the most profound launch to me, you know, but not the one I would be buying anytime soon. I mean, for many reasons, but
yeah,
you know, not those which just 18 of them and they're $44,000, you know, that,
sure.
But like, even if I could, I wouldn't. It's not like a watch that I would run to. I actually think I like the Messena Vianney Halter more. Vianney Halter, the star of Geneva Watch Days this year.
Sure.
Yeah, no, he really, like, he was everywhere, you know, like we had that, you know, great meeting with him. There was the Behrens Vianney Halter release. There was the Messena Vianney Halter release. There was another Vianney Halter related release that we can't talk about yet, which I think will be, you'll know about soon. But I mean, I gotta agree. I think the Behrens release is, to me, the real highlight of the show, and the watch that I'll kind of like think back on and like kind of like remember this show by. Perhaps largely because of that meeting, which is great to kind of sit down with Vianney Halter, who's like a true, like honestly, kind of like a hero of mine, and like a real living legend. And I think it's like pretty important that he collaborated in this way with Behrens, which is a Chinese brand that's doing like really, really interesting work and has been for several years now. And I think it really elevates Behrens and elevates, higher end Chinese watchmaking in a way that's important. And I think for too long, in this industry, people have dismissed, watchmaking in China as, being, just kind of like not very serious. And, certainly there's a lot of like, mass production of watches that like we don't really, think too much or care about too much of, happening in China. But like, there's also like really good high quality manufacturing happening in China, and adventurous independence. And, I think this is like a really great example of that. And, hopefully it exposes, kind of like another generation of, collectors and enthusiasts to the work of Vianney Halter. And it makes people rethink, what Chinese watchmaking, is all about. Devin, did you have any thoughts on that Behrens release?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about it without seeing it in person because it is pretty wild. You look at pictures, you look at renders. Most of the photos that we see early on are renders, obviously. And then you see wrist shots kind of start sneaking out during the show. I'm pretty enamored with the chain drive system on the outside of it, that kind of micro chain that they have running around the outskirts. It's pretty neat. It seems really interesting. The way that they do it is really cool because that is something that you see on... I can't remember the brand, but there is another brand out there that does a chain drive system on their movements.
I'm totally blanking on the name.
I know.
I'm trying to think of it all, and it's killing me.
Yeah, and it's driving me nuts because they also do like a belt drive system too, but it reminds me of like motorcycle engines, and I really enjoy the mechanical aspect of it, and it's really fun.
You might be thinking of actually different ones. You might be thinking of the one from California that made watches several years ago.
There is that one. There's a different one though, but there is that one too. But that one is definitely a bit of a different, like a lower. Anyway, yes, I think that the mechanism here is very intriguing, but it's one that I don't think I can really appreciate until I were to see it in person. And given the fact that they are very expensive, very limited, and probably never going to be in front of me, I'm probably not going to appreciate it as much as I should. So, as cool as they are, I can appreciate it from afar and kind of move on with the piece. Yeah, I don't know. Neat collaboration, but hard to really dive into something that you don't get to really stare into. These are, what is it? It's like 800 components, I think is what they said.
Yeah,
870 components.
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at it from on top or from below, just in the renderings that you have there, you're barely scratching the surface on all the components that are inside of it. You really have to look at this thing from all of the angles to really appreciate the mechanism. And so until you get it in hand, you really can't speak to the mechanical marvels that are happening there. So it's one that hopefully I get to stare into at some point, but until then, it's pretty surface level.
Yeah, no, I hope at some point they, there's one that like kind of like shows that maybe they'll have one in New York at some point for an event or something. You never know.
Hopefully,
it's definitely worth getting a look at if you can. I was very, very impressed with it. Behrens, I think, is they're just a really interesting brand, doing a lot of pretty compelling stuff at significantly lower price points than this watch. They have watches that cost well under $10,000. Like they're in the affordable category. I think by most measures. So this is like a big swing for them in terms of like reaching up to a higher price point. But as many pointed out, at Geneva Watch Days, it's expensive for a Behrens, but it's very inexpensive for a Vianney Halter, at least for a watch that he had a large role in designing and building the movement for. So
I think that's the interesting thing, right? It's not just a collaboration in design language like we've seen with some of the other collaborations he's done. It's a true movement collaboration too.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's not just lending his name or his aesthetic to this watch. Like he had a real like the watchmaking is him,
Right.
in this watch in a, pretty, pretty major way. Yeah. Devin, from your kind of like, somewhat detached, perspective, back here in the States, kind of watching the releases roll in, were there any that really stuck out to you as we were?
Can I jump in super fast?
Of
And I
course,
think
yeah.
just to give a shout out to the brand I was thinking of, which is Genus, Genus.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yep.
It's not quite a chain though. It's very, they're just kind of confusing. It's hard to tell, but it doesn't have a micro chain, but it is like a snake kind of thing that wraps around the dial. That was what I was trying to think of, and just couldn't bring of the name. But shout out to Genus for making a cool watch.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Watches that stood out. Oh, there were a couple. This is one that might not. This is kind of polar opposite from what we were just talking about as far as like intricate movement and collaborative design. But this is a collaboration watch, just mostly in color, and it was the Zenith USM collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I absolutely love this collaboration. The colors I think are super fun. I think that it is like kind of the two perfect brands to collaborate on the watch. The design comes from the same era. Really cool. Even though there's 60 pieces each for each color, it's a pretty cool collaborative piece. You get a watch box piece of furniture from USM to go with each watch too. So overall, I think just a neat piece to go together. 11,800, I think, is the price point on them. So not the cheapest watch out there, but overall, I think just a neat way to bring the two brands together and something that was pretty unexpected. A good hit from Zenith.
Those stuck with me. And I think like also one of my top picks from the show, just like on a personal taste level. Beautiful colors on those dials, like really rich lacquered color. But then they took like their best case, in my opinion, and put a movement that isn't typically there, their best movement, the El Primero, or their most famous, best, whatever. And it, works really well. It didn't scale up that watch to make that movement fit. And it was just very appealing in person. And then that box, that box is a crazy box.
Yeah,
I mean, it is gigantic, and it's like a proper piece of this brand's furniture, which, like, I don't know, Zach, if you were familiar with them before, but it's not a company like that as I think as an American I'm overly aware of. But when we talk to Swiss people about it, they're like, oh yeah, every office here has that stuff in it. So it's, it's much more rooted in that. And actually cool. I mean, the story starts with them building the Zenith office and working with that company to build everything. So like, it was really cool. It was legitimately really cool. And I think honestly, once you see that piece of furniture that you get with it, essentially this giant watch box, you're like, oh, the price kind of makes sense. Because I would have thought they would have added a few $1,000s sort of on the typical Zenith price to get there. So
yeah, the box is crazy. It's huge, and like you said, it is like a real piece of furniture. I was a fan of those watches too. It's the colors are very nice. I think it's a limited edition, so I mean they'll be hard to source. I would imagine, but the colors are good. The case is good. I think that Zenith continues to do a really nice job with these vintage inspired watches. This, of course, is not like a recreation. They've never put a chronograph in this particular, Defy case. There are vintage Defys, Defy chronographs. So it's interesting that they chose like this case, which is based on the original Defy, to stick a chronograph in there. But I think it works. Comes on the ladder bracelet, which I've always been a fan of, and that was a cool piece for sure. There's another watch I wanted to highlight, Zach. This might be like a shared number two, perhaps for both of us, but the new Dennison dual time zone watches with stone dials, I think, are just like incredibly good. These watches are under $1,000. This was a meeting that we had I believe on day one, and it was probably like my most anticipated meeting of day one. We got a little quick preview of these watches at Wind Up Chicago, and they're great. So these are just like purely kind of like 70s inspired. They have two quartz movements side by side, so you can kind of set them however you want, for multiple time zones or same time zone, or one can be your time zone, the other can be just completely made up. It doesn't matter. It's really just kind of a style thing. And there's a bunch of different combinations that use either, like one solid stone with a subdial for one of the time zones, or the ones I really like use two separate stones, one on each half, for like a really cool, like contrasting dial. And Devin, I'm actually really curious to hear your take on these, because you are long on the record as being kind of like tired of the stone dial stuff, and this is like stone dial, like the most maximal kind of like stone dial. I can imagine. What's more stone than two stones? I guess three, maybe.
That was
for next year.
Literally my first comment. I just started warming up to a few stone dials out there. Dennison, you had me on the hook with the Time and Tide limited edition you did. I love that collaboration. I think that dial is gorgeous. Stone dials are not for me, and now there's two stones in one dial. I'm hard out. I mean, come on. What is going on here? Like, if I'm putting a kitchen together and I'm putting the countertop together, I want to make sure that when my counter meets the other piece of counter, that the stone lines up properly and that the grain goes together. I don't want two different pieces of stone coming together at that edge. And that's what this looks like to me. It looks like I hired somebody who just had an extra slab lying around, and so they put it in there and ran away. I don't like the juxtaposition.
So Devin's a real book matched marble kind of guy.
Yeah. This to me, like if it was, I don't know, if you were to do like the herringbone pattern with opposing stone, that would be kind of cool for me. But just putting like two squares next to each other, it just throws me off. I don't like it. The subdial I think is kind of cool. That one I think is an interesting look. But just the two squares next to each other, I'm like, I don't know, pick one or the other. No, thank you.
I mean, I hear your argument, and I will just say, as in person, it's much more harmonious than I think you'd realize or think it would be. They're smaller. It's like seeing anything as like a large image on a computer. You kind of like can focus on that line. It's not kind of what you take in, I feel like, when you see them in person. But like, asymmetry drives some people nuts, and I get that. And like, obviously every single one is going to be different. So you'll have some where it's going to be more dramatic grain than others. But I don't know. I'm not the biggest stone dial fan either. Would be the stone dial watch I'd get. Like,
wow. Okay.
Partially because of the price point on it. It's like not a big investment for something that's really cool. And even I might even go for like a gold plated one, just to like have that stone dial 70s feeling gold plated dress watch to like throw on. It's seriously, I think I said this in my like that Instagram reel I made, but like every time I put one on, it's like, oh man, this is the one I'm going to get. And then I put the next one, it's like, oh man, I really like this one. Like they all were just so cool. And I don't know, sleek. They're really just they're very cool watches. Like I like the first one. I thought they did a really good job with what it was and kind of just being the brand at the right moment for that trend kind of a thing. But like this one just takes it to another level. And they're such a good watch.
I gotta say, I'm with you, Zach, on the like considering a gold plated one. Like usually that for me is sort of like not something I'm into at all. I just kind of like don't like the idea of a gold plated watch or something just sort of inherently sort of like inauthentic
PVD, about. It's not even plated actually. At that price point.
But aesthetically, it's just kind of like hard to deny that like they work. If you're into this at all, I think like the gold treated cases just look really, really great. Devin's still shaking his head. Devin is not a fan of the 1970s. I get it, Devin.
Yeah, maybe they'll prove me wrong. So they are coming to Wind Up New York. I will see them in person there for the first time. I hope they prove me wrong. I really hope that I put it on my wrist and all of a sudden like more chest hair fills in, my beard gets a little thicker, afro grows in, who knows?
It's definitely going to happen, yeah.
Yeah, I hope I get proven wrong, but until then, I will continue to shake my head now.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need like a 43 millimeter version for you know.
There's also something too about like the dual hands and the dual crowns that to me just kind of looks like a wacky face. Like it looks like there's supposed to be like a big nose and mustache on the dial too. Like there's just something
You're
kind of
projecting, Devin.
I know. Oh man.
Yeah.
I was going to say he's pitching. Like these are ideas for Dennison. Yeah.
Yeah. Do one with like the disguise.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I mean, I would love to see them go further with this. I feel like there are these obviously two twin movement watches from the 70s, but you also have like 4 and 5 movement, or at least dial watches. I think maybe when you get up to like the 4 dials might all be driven by one more complex thing, but they're cool looking,
Yeah, well, you're a big fan of that Jacob & Co. watch, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Damn it, Zach.
Yeah.
You're out at me? No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not that. But that conceptually, sure, it has the movements. I think Enicar actually had a really cool, like I saved myself. Enicar had like a 5 sub-dial watch. Like
yeah, no, they did. It's that was a chronograph, right? I think that had some like crazy like 5 sub-dial layout. Yeah, I listen. I'm an unapologetic fan of these watches. I'm a fan of the original, Dennison releases from last year. I'm really into what they're doing, and as usual, I think it's worth pointing out with these that like the dials are obviously like the highlight. People naturally sort of like want to discuss the dials because they're very dramatic. But the cases are like the secret weapon. Like the cases are like very well machined. They fit nice. Really well. They're super thin and comfortable, and like these wouldn't work. Like they wouldn't be nearly as appealing if they didn't get the cases right. And Dennison is that's their historically like they're a case maker, and the cases are excellent on these watches. So shout out to Dennison. Zach, what's another Geneva Watch Days release that kind of like stuck out to you?
I might okay. I really like the new Fierce Jump Hour.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is one that you put under like iterative releases, but it is different enough from the previous models in my eyes to just stand out. Obviously the Jump Hour is not excuse me, the Jump Hour is not an old model for them. They released it last year, I guess, after following the like Christopher Ward like limited version. But they sort of give it a facelift with this more classical dial. They're called the Barleycorn. So it has a guilloche pattern around the sort of minute sub-dial in the center, which is burgundy. It's a stamp dial at that price. It's definitely not like Rose Engine turn, but it just takes into a more of a traditional airspace that I think really works with the Fears brand. And yeah, I love a Jump Hour. I really like those watches to begin with. I mean, so this one just is like, if I were to have customized one of those, I might have like actually leaned more towards something like this to begin with. So yeah, just a really nice one. I was quite taken with it when we were looking at it.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot too. And that's a watch that I have to say, like really won me over in person. Like when the press release came through, I just like, I thought like, that's nice, like they did another Jump Hour. It's in a, slightly different, actually significantly different colorway. It kind of reminded me of the Edwardian edition that they released earlier this year for British Watchmakers Day. That was a watch in a silver case, but it had sort of similar, like kind of like plum or maroon accents, if I remember correctly. So it seems kind of like a sister watch to that, perhaps. But like in person, like it really impressed me. Like the pattern, that Barleycorn pattern on the dial, just like works really well. Obviously, it's stamped, as you point out, but it's very, very, very nicely done. The little detail that I liked the most, which is new in this iteration of the Jump Hour, is the little Fears plaque at the bottom at 6 o'clock, and that's just like a really small thing, but just like adds a lot to the to just kind of like the overall sort of impression of the watch, and it just kind of like makes it feel a little bit more Fears in some way, and I really like that, and I think that's going to be a motif that continues as they release more Jump Hours and different variants and colorways and so forth. I really like that. I like the other watches they showed us too. Again, like more than I expected to, based on like the press release that had those like early renders, particularly, and the name of the watch escapes me. Zach, maybe you can help me. The tool watch that that they put out, like that's a really cool watch, and could like be a very different direction for the brand if they pursue that.
It's the Redcliffe 39.5.
That's right.
Then ES for endurance specification.
That's right.
And yes, I have their webpage open. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really cool piece. I think that's going to be very popular for them. I get the sense that, like, we had a great meeting with Nicholas. He spent a lot of time with us, walking us through all the new releases and talking to us kind of about, like just the state of the brand and his future plans. And it sounds like they really, did their market research and know that there are buyers for a sportier kind of tool oriented Fears watch. And they made a really good one. Devin, did you have any thoughts on those Fears watches?
Yeah, I do love them. Like a lot of the Fears releases recently, they've been really just pulling me further and further into the brand. The Jump Hour is beautiful. We've talked about the Jump Hour a lot, Zach and I have, especially that Edwardian edition, because it is one that I still wish I really would have pulled the trigger on.
Man, I was standing like at the Fears stand at British Watchmakers Day when they were selling like the last one, and I
was holding it. I was holding it, and I was like, I should just buy this right now. And then I put it back and walked away, and I've regretted it ever since.
Yeah, this is the one with the sterling silver case.
Yeah, it was just so. It was fantastic. The weight in hand. It was perfect. I do like the little Fears placket too. It adds a little bit of balance to the dial, which I think is just, I don't know. It's nice. Overall, beautiful new release. I do like the charcoal and copper kind of motif of the other 38 millimeter version. For me, I actually don't really want a sportier side to Fears. I understand that there's probably a large customer base that is calling for that. A lot of people want a sport watch from every brand out there. I'm not one of those people, but I do understand that Fears is trying to obviously broaden their horizons, and I like that from them. I think that they stuck to their core ethos in releasing a sport watch that still feels like a Fears. Not an easy sentence to say. But it looks just like something that fits into their larger collection while hitting on those specs that people are looking for. So good on them. And hopefully they kind of keep down that same path without getting too far away from their kind of like core collection. They stick with their standard Fears design motif.
Yeah, I think they will. I think that they have a good understanding of like what kind of like makes Fears at this point, and I think they'll try to like grow obviously as a brand of their size. Like should at this stage, but I feel like they have a very good sense of kind of like what makes a Fears watch, and what makes them special, and kind of like unique in the space for sure.
They did give some context for it, which were like tool pocket watches, essentially from the original or early Fears days that were meant for the work, like the work man.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
The workman.
the working man.
The common working stiff. Yeah.
The common workman.
A tool pocket watch. Devin, what else stuck out to you? Are there any watches that you wanted to, like ask us about that were, you want kind of like the full reporting on that maybe we haven't talked about yet, either on the website or on social media?
So there are two. I actually don't know. Frankly, I probably should have asked you before we recorded, but there are two that I don't know if you guys got hands-on with that you can report on right now if you did or not. But did you get a chance to see the Doxa Sub 750T in person or the Frederic Constant Perpetual Calendar Manufacturer in person?
We did. I think we were both in both of those meetings, right, Zach? I think that we both. Yeah. So
okay, cool. We can bring the price point down slightly with Doxa then.
Yeah, so the Doxa the Doxa is a weird watch. So it's a 750T. It's huge. It's like they open the case and you
geometry
see
is fantastic.
Well, I'm getting there. And it's like it's enormous. Like visually, it's just like you think to yourself, how could a human being wear this watch? Is this watch for Andre the Giant, or that guy who was like 8 feet tall or whatever, who is in the Guinness Book of World Records? Like how does a normal person wear this watch? And then like you put it on, and it does that sort of like magic thing where like the case is thin enough and curved at just the right spot where it doesn't feel overwhelming. At least on my wrist, I have about a 7.5 inch wrist, and
mine either.
Yeah. So like it's it's kind of just one of those weird things where, it's a watch writing cliche. Like you have to wear it and, put it on to kind of get a sense of what it feels like in person. But in the metal, but like it's really true. Like the visual impression of this watch does not match the wearing experience of it. It's still like has a lot of wrist presence for sure. It's a big diver, but like they've made it as thin and wearable, I think, as they possibly could. You have a similar impression of that watch, Zach?
Yeah. I mean, I was when they say 45 millimeters, my ears closed to it. Kind of generally speaking, that's just like a 45 millimeter watch is not on my personal radar. And then you put it on, and I mean the Doxa like effect of like having the barrel, and then you have the bezel, and then you step in, like you have all these steps in, so they do feel very compressed. And I actually do kind of recall trying on the smaller one they came out with a few years ago and feeling like it was too small for me. Like I know it's very popular, but then I was like, oof, that didn't do it for me. I'm also like I'm a Doxa appreciator. I'm not a Doxa customer. Like I don't ever anticipate owning one. But I wasn't put off by the dimensions here. And it makes me wonder if like a 43 or something like that would really almost be like the perfect size for it for me. Like it was big still, but it wasn't unwearable kind of a thing. Like if it was the only Doxa, I wouldn't be like, oh, total miss or something like that. But yeah, it was cool. I feel like it was the Clive Cussler version, which I guess came out a little while ago, and this was the core line version, which are ostensibly the same without the packaging and the little print detail.
Yep, exactly. As far as the Frederick Constant stuff, I didn't actually spend a ton of time with the perpetual calendar. They have. Are you referring to the new gold, the solid gold perpetual, Devin? Because there was also they
did a perpetual calendar manufacture, which they brought out. I think there were like 3 new versions of it, quote unquote. But one was in 18 karat gold. But then they also had their Classics Premier, a new version of that as well.
Yeah. So the Classics Premier is like low key one of my favorite watches that I saw last week. I really, really liked it. If you had told me, like a week ago this time that one of my favorite watches of the week would be a very affordable Frederick Constant, I wouldn't have necessarily believed you. Kind of similar to Doxa. Like I'm a Frederick Constant like an admirer sometimes, but like not an owner. And the new Classics Premier like is really, really good. It has I think it's like a 38 millimeter case. The dials on these new ones, the previous versions had these kind of like very ornate, like Roman numeral dials, which just were not appealing to me at all. The new ones have Breguet numerals and like a multi-texture dial with like a grain texture in the interior section, and then a smoother texture outboard, and like the numerals look great. There's a 5-link bracelet now, which wears really well. If you're looking for a relatively affordable, kind of like vintage inspired everyday / dressy watch, these are really good. They're like, I think about 2,500 USD. There's a blue one and a salmon one. I think the blue one is the one to get in my opinion, but that's obviously subjective. Really nice. And the gold perpetual calendar is very cool too. That watch is a little under 30,000 CHF, I believe. So probably like in the like closer to 40,000 USD or thereabouts, depending on the terrible exchange rate at any given time. But it's very impressive. Something that came up in the meeting, several times is that like they're still making that stainless steel perpetual calendar, and it comes in under $10,000 and it has for years now. And I think that that's like a pretty important thing that they're able to do. Like it's a real feather in their cap that like they're that they have a perpetual calendar available for under 10K still, even in this moment of like rapidly increasing prices and tariffs and everything else. So yeah, good meeting with Frederick Constant this year for sure. Zach, any additional thoughts on the Frederick Constant stuff?
No, I mean, I really like them as well. It's kind of a watch I would need to maybe revisit at some point. I'd like to like spend time with one of the premier ones specifically. I do like design. So that design, if you're familiar with the Frederick Constant X Revolution monolithic they did a couple years ago, it's pretty much that. But they did that with the monolithic movement, which I have looked at those on secondhand market, and I've debated picking one up because I thought they're very cool, particularly because of the monolithic moving. But it's that same sort of grain dial. with the Breguet numerals. It looks like there's some more detailing on the new one, some more like additional indices and things like that, like our railroad tracks on it, which sort of fills out the space a bit more, which is nice. It's actually interesting looking at it, and I didn't quite pick up on this in person, but their like interpretation of the Breguet type is actually kind of peculiar. You have these twos that are like closed forms, like it's not a straight Breguet numeral, which is actually nice that it's sort of like it has a little bit more flair to it, actually. They asked me in person, like, salmon or blue. I feel like a few years ago, I probably would have said salmon, but this time I feel like the blue was sort of the winner. It's sort of like a softer denim blue, which is a little bit more uncommon. I mean, the salmon's gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but it's just no longer like a totally uncommon thing to find. And but
there were a lot of salmon watches this year, like across, like I can think of like 3 off the top of my head. There were, lots of salmon this year for sure.
I'm curious with that classics premiere though. So like the old version, I wrote about that watch a couple of years ago actually, and it had like that carbon fiber weave texture in the center, which threw a lot of people off. They didn't love that old texture, but at the time it was one of the more affordable ways to get a Le Joux G100 movement. That was a really cool selling point of that watch. It's no longer the case now. You can get that movement in more affordable pieces. Did they update the movement at all? Because I didn't actually look it up before we started this recording. Is it still the G100 inside of there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I think for the price point and for the brand, that's kind of like, unless they go to their in-house, which they're going to raise the price on. The G100 is about like the, probably the best movement they're going to put in there. I mean, maybe they can get a chronometer or something like that. It's funny that you call that a carbon fiber. That's a basket weave. That's like, the J.N. Shapiro specials. It's like that's the most iconic classic.
You say that until you see it in person, though. Like when you see it in person, it looks more carbon fiber than it looks basket weave. Like it looks
interesting.
It looks cheaper in person. I'm sorry to say that to the public here, but like,
not,
I know. But when you see it in person, like it looks like a cheaper carbon fiber than it looks like an actual basket weave.
Yeah,
fair enough. Then, that's what your eyes are for, to tell the public.
It was an unfortunate thing because when I saw the first photos of it, I was really excited to get it in and write about it, and then when I saw it in person, I was pretty let down by the actual appearance of it in person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this watch is an improvement. I think aesthetically. I don't think I've seen the previous version in person, so I don't want to like. Make a inflammatory statement about a watch I haven't seen, but just like if you go on the website and just look at the renders that they have on the Frederick Constant website, I think that like the newer ones are just objectively like just a better design, like a cleaner design. The other ones are just sort of I don't know, a bit all over the place in my opinion, just sort of like just too much going on in my estimation. But so Frederick Constant, one of the nice surprises this year for sure.
Very cool.
Anything else you wanted to get a read on, Devin, that maybe we haven't discussed?
I guess one blanket question I had for you guys, like what was something that caught you by surprise? Is there something that you walked in there that you weren't expecting that just kind of caught you off guard? Because I'm sure there had to have been something that just was out of the blue, surprised you. Obviously, this was a year that we talked a little bit offline about Oris kind of coming out with some wacky, wild colors, and we talked about some brand collaborations that we wouldn't have necessarily called ahead of time. Tag Heuer even coming out with those astronomer models. I don't think a whole lot of people would have expected to like a new Tag Heuer release as much as people have liked those. Was there something that you walked away from that show going, wow, that really wasn't something I thought I was going to like as much as I did?
Oh, I have one.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
The Mad One Yinka Lori watch.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good one.
So like it looked fun and everything, and in the images, much more like kind of radical use of color and things like that. But I'm not honestly like the biggest Mad One fan. The watch just never really quite like clicked with me. On the wrist or anything like that. It's a larger watch, however. These ones were just like so much fun. Every detail on them has been rethought in some way. The colors are just out there and exciting, and like, I did the math on the tariffs on the if you're to win one through the raffle or whatever, and that kind of was the only thing that stopped me from entering it this time. But I really, really like them, and unexpected. It's one of those times I put it on, I was just like excited. You know what I mean? If I'd been able to walk away with one there, probably would have, kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, those watches were pretty cool. In person, I have to say, just like just really cool colors. I like the Mad 1S, quite a bit. So yeah, those worked. I guess so. I have two answers for this. One, I want to shout out a brand new brand that launched at Geneva Watch Days, which I was looking forward to seeing, and like it did pleasantly surprise me. And that's Stolen Worm. Stolen Worm is brand founded by Ed Tortolot, who is a guy who lives in my home state of New Hampshire. Shout out to Ed if he's listening. And I connected with him, maybe about a year or so ago, when he kind of like started to reach out to press, about this new brand that he was launching. And I quickly realized, like, we're both in New Hampshire, and so we got to just like chatting a little bit, and he like has been. He has like very high hopes for this brand. And like I've we've all seen this before, in the watch industry. A new brand comes on the scene and they have like all these like ideas to take big swings, really dramatic stuff. And of course I'm hearing about these ideas, and he's sending me photos along the way of how things are like shaping out with like the development of the movement and all of the work that goes into these like incredibly intricate artistic dials. And I was hoping you could pull it off, but like I honestly like wasn't sure. Like you just never know until you see the watch. And we had a meeting with Stolen Worm, I think towards the very end of day one of Geneva Watch Days, and I was like very, very impressed with these watches, particularly the Series 2 watches. So there's two versions of this watch. The first one is sort of like an integrated bracelet, it's like sports watch, and then the second version of the watch is a watch on a strap with the same case that has a really like intricate, kind of like micro painted dial based on a tarot card deck. And it's just really good in person. Like he pulled it off, and it was really glad that glad to come out of that meeting seeing like a real watch that was that was finished and looked great. And apparently he made some sales over the course of the week, and that's great for a new brand to be able to sell these watches that are these are 6-figure watches. So not an easy sell, particularly for a brand new brand. The other watch I want to shout out is the high horology piece from Holthenrichs. We had dinner with the Holthenrichs team, when we were in Geneva, and they happened to pull one out, a finished version of that watch, which I had only seen in like a very rough prototype form prior. And just another example of a brand like with really really ambitious goals. And it was just really, really cool to like see like the finished product and that they pulled it off. So shout out to them, and congrats to them on completing something that must have been like incredibly challenging and to taking years of development.
Can I give a shout out to one other watch? It's a humble, subtle watch. The Greubel Force Nano Quadrante chronogram.
Very low key.
Yeah. I've never had a chance to really spend any time with any Greubel Forces before. This is the first time we had a meeting with them. And, one of the highest end watch brands in existence. So not shocking that their watches are beautiful. But yeah, that thing was so cool. Just so cool. And having it explained how it works, the nanotechnology, there's like wind in it. I don't know. Just an absolutely insane thing.
The watch is an airbender.
It's fun to be handed a $500,000 watch, and they're just like, yeah, put it on, try it out, hit the buttons.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was just fun.
Yeah, no, it was. That's just one of those like cool experiences that you have at a show like this, where you come into a meeting with a brand like Greubel Force, and they show you like, suddenly you just have like 10 of them in front of you, and it's like, it's just like kind of wild. I spent more time with Greubel Force watches in that, like half-hour meeting than I had, combined for my entire life, up until that point. So yeah, that was a real treat to see those watches, and just like a really, also just like shout out to them, like a really great meeting. Like we don't really cover Greubel Force and be like in detail on Worn and Mound. We talk about them sometimes when there's like a notable release, but they're, not necessarily in our wheelhouse per se, but like they took a lot of time. We talked to the CEO and he walked us through everything, and it was a really, really fun meeting. So yeah, thank you to Gribble Forsey for taking the time. Guys, I think we did it. I think we summarized and recapped Geneva Watch Days 2025. That's all. That's all anyone needs to know. Is just our takes there.
Don't read the lovely coverage that has been on Warren and Mon for the past couple of days. Don't worry about that. This is the whole thing.
Read that too. It'll continue, through the rest of this week.
There's more stuff. I'm realizing I didn't even touch on Burner On, but let's maybe save that for a different day.
Oh yeah, Burner On is a whole. Man, we could easily spend an hour talking about the ins and outs of Burner On, Sylvan Burner On's brand. Probably honestly, probably the most discussed brand at the show this year, I think. So yeah. Zach, Devin, thank you very much for joining me to chat everything Geneva Watch Days 2025. Thank you to all the listeners at home for tuning in and listening, and for reading all the coverage on the website and watching all the Instagram reels that Zach and I put together in Geneva. We had a lot of fun covering the show, and there's more to come, so keep an eye out on the website for that. And stay tuned next week for another new episode of the Warner Wild podcast. Until then, take care.